Quorum is established. We're going to begin today's hearing with Senate Bills 825 and 894. Since these two bills are substantially similar, we are going to hear them together. Anyone wishing to testify in favor or opposition, please make sure you fill out a witness form for each bill you are testifying in favor or against, and leave it before you leave. Senators, you can begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, State Senator Denny Hoskins, representing the 21st Senatorial District, here today to present Senate Bill 825. Senate Bill 825 has the Right to Start Act as well as the sandbox provisions. This is something that this committee has supported overwhelmingly in the past. In fact, I believe it was voted out 27-5 out on the Senate floor last year. But like I said, it includes Right to Start, Office of Entrepreneurship, and the Sandbox Act, and then also gets rid of the Small Business Regulatory Fairness Board, which is replaced by the Regulatory Relief Office. And with that, I'll let Senator Fitzwater.
Senator Fitzwater, 10th District. I have Senate Bill 894, which is the same as what we passed last year, as Senator Hoskins mentioned. We combined, so I carried the Right to Start bill, which has some provisions for the state to focus on entrepreneurship from a statewide level that Senator Hoskins was kind enough to add to his regulatory sandbox bill last year. So we combined them together. It became the Right to Start Act, and just glad to kind of ride his coattails on the Sandbox Act and get that passed last year through the Senate, and then it kind of got hung up there at the end with a lot of things. So as the senator mentioned, it just allows a couple things that I think are good changes to state statute to focus on entrepreneurship and to remove regulations that are preventing people to be able to innovate based on the rules we have in our state. So this would allow regulators to say, we're going to pull back some of those regulations so we can test out products. Utah has had great success with this, and so we think Missouri ought to be deregulated in some ways to allow innovation to take place in the state.
Thank you. I have to say that my first time up here, keeping track of whose bill is who and everything, I really appreciate the fact that you guys dressed alike and representing the same bill. And same haircut, glasses. So
That is true.
yeah. So I'm sure you did that. You planned that out for my sake. So thank you for that. Senators, do you have any questions? Senator Beck?
I do. Thank you. I didn't notice that until now, so I'm glad he's very observant. So,
Senator, before you start, I really do like your pink shirt and pink tie.
well, thank you.
So
I like it. It's my favorite tie. So thank you. Thank you for noticing it.
you're welcome.
These bills, are they the exact same?
Yes, I believe that they are exact same.
Okay.
They both include the sandbox and as well as the Right to Start provisions. That
I mean, I read through one. I read through your senator,
Yes.
and then I kind of did the summary on the other one.
Right.
So I thought they were the same, but I just wanted to make sure that was the case. Senator, if you remember, you and I had a conversation last year towards the end when this bill was getting closer, and there's a section in there, if you have your bill handy, on page 22, number 4. We talked about removing that, and that was going to be removed in the final product, if you remember.
I do. Yeah. I'm sorry. Our page numbers must not be the same.
Uh-oh.
But
Is there
I'd be glad to have discussions. I
Yeah,
vaguely remember that we talked about a certain
it basically affects section 620.3920.
3920.
Yeah, and then it would
Okay.
be section 4 of that.
4.
But
Under where it says a sandbox participant shall be deemed to possess an appropriate license.
No, sandbox participants shall be deemed to, yeah, as an appropriate license, yes, exactly. That one there, we talked about taking that out, that section. If you recall, that was towards the end of session,
And I think we had agreed to that last year, hadn't we?
yeah, you did. You did agree to it, and that's why I wanted to make sure that if that goes forward, we can
Yeah.
change that part, and then.
I have no problem taking that out.
Yeah, I'm good with it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from senators? Seeing as that there are none, would anyone like to come testify in favor of the bill?
about that. Don't everybody jump up at once. This is Heidi Geisbuehler-Sutherland here on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We are supportive of both of these bills. As the sponsors said, this is a great way to encourage innovation among small businesses in the state, and it gives a little bit of flexibility whenever it comes to sometimes overburdensome regulations. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing as there are none, thank you. Be sure to leave a witness form.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, Brad Jones with the NFIB. We've supported these two bills for the last couple of years now, and we certainly do this year. We really like the Office of Entrepreneurship part of it because we've kind of wanted to have a one-stop shop for small businesses, and this calls for 10 and under. And I would remind the committee that of the total number of employers we have in the state, 81% have less than 10 employees. So we're glad to see that in there. Thank you, and we're glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Thank you. Please be sure to leave a witness form. Next up in favor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, James Harris. I'm a registered lobbyist here to testify in support of both SB825 and SB894 on behalf of two clients, Cicero Action and the Opportunity Solution Project. We've enjoyed working on these bills. Both years they've been like the 1 yard line. Just for other states are having similar conversation. About 6 states have a financial technology sandbox. 4 states now, Kentucky, South Dakota, Vermont, and West Virginia have insurance sandbox. Utah was the first state to kind of have, in 2021, a statewide one. I think we'd be the third state if this were adopted. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for the witness?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. David Jackson, registered lobbyist for Next Missouri and BioSTL, 2 organizations that work a lot with entrepreneurs and investors and people who support those startups in the St. Louis community and across the state. So I want to go on record and support.
Any questions for the witness? Thank you very much. Next up in favor.
Mr. Chairman, Shannon Cooper today representing the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce as well as the Civic Council of Greater Kansas City. Like in the past, we want to go on record in support of the bill. I'd love to see it accomplished this year. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Thank you very much. Anyone else in favor?
Good afternoon. I'm Jim Erickson, Director of Strategic Initiatives at the Economic Development Corporation of Kansas City, who I represent. We wanted to go on record in support of this bill.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness? Thank you very much. Anyone else in favor of the bills? Seeing as there are none, would anyone like to testify in opposition to the bills?
Hello, Chair. My name is Michael Berg. I am representing the Sierra Club Missouri chapter, registered lobbyist for the Sierra Club, testifying against the section of both of these bills concerning the regulatory sandbox. I think this is the 7th time I've testified against the regulatory sandbox, so it's been happening a few years. We fundamentally oppose the concept of allowing different companies and different entities to play by different rules of others. I think that undermines the regulatory state and the idea of the rule of law. We find the definition of what is and is not an innovative offering to be vague, which could allow too many companies to enter that have very little in the way of actual innovation. We also see the definition of consumer as too narrow, as the role of the regulatory state is not just to protect consumers, protect the public as a whole from possible changes. And, in general, we're looking at things. Sometimes innovation is good. Sometimes it is not. We're looking at, especially when we're looking at environmental rules, we're looking at the problems that have been caused by the Denali dumping of materials and the whole issue with the prime beef packers, and a lot of people are upset about the proposal to dump the waste in the Pomme de Terre River, and we're worried about environmental rules being undermined. I think that there's a superior way to meet the same goals. You can have a regulatory relief office dedicated to helping small businesses navigate the process, and also examine, like a lot of agencies have, like when rules should be taken off the books, or are they not serving the purpose and getting in the way of positive developments. Now, that said, we see ways in which the bill can be made better. Was listening to the discussion that was made before. I'm hopeful that the section about federal standards, enforcement of federal standards and giving them licensure is taken out, because that's very dangerous to the continuation of delegated authority of the Department of Natural Resources. So we hope that's taken out. I've got some other amendments. There's one, it's the way it's presently worded. If a business or company is to be put in sandbox status, it looks to see whether it protects consumers, safety, health concerns. It says nothing about environmental protection. That's one of the points, one of the reasons for laws and rules in our state is to protect our environment. And so that should be added too, that you cannot get sandbox status until you're sure that granting it does not undermine the goal of environmental protection. I believe there's a good chance that could, in the House version, that could be in there. We'd like that to be in, if this were to pass, like that to be in too. There's also ways to tighten up the language about what is an innovative offering, and a couple other possible amendments. So we don't like the fundamental idea, but there's ways to make this better where it does not pose as much of a potential danger for environmental protection if applied to DNR rules.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the witness? Thank you very much. Please be sure to leave a witness form. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the bills? Please come forward. Seeing as there are none, is there anyone that would like to speak for informational purposes only? Any closing remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is a good bill to help out entrepreneurs in our state and truly help out those small businesses. Thank you for hearing it.
Thank you. Next up, we'll be hearing Senate Bill 792. Senator Roberts is on his way up here right now, so be just a moment.
He's on his way up.
Yeah, we're taking out Tony's SB190 fix, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
There should. Nah, you guys should have received substitute. It was included some. You guys should have received the substitute. Yeah, has some. Do you know when Tony's substitute went out? All right, next up, we will be hearing Senate Bill 792 by Senator Roberts. Begin when you're ready.
Just catch my breath from running up those stairs. Thank you all for your flexibility. I'd like to thank the chair and members of the committee for affording me the opportunity to present Senate Bill 792, Revitalizing Missouri Development Downtowns and Main Street Act. Senators, as a result of COVID, an accelerated shift from in-office to remote and hybrid work, office spaces in major cities have seen the effects of the national trend of significantly falling demand for high-density commercial office space. Each city empty city blocks hurt the surrounding small businesses, which depend on foot traffic and vibrancy, and empty blocks become magnets for crime. These buildings are too large to tear down, and their infrastructure makes residential conversion costs prohibitive without economic support. Meanwhile, many of our state's historic main streets and small downtowns have been hollowed out by decades of disinvestment and a lack of access to capital. With Senate Bill 792, we hope to breathe life back into the downtowns of Missouri's biggest cities to its small towns as well. This bill establishes a tax credit for 25% of qualified conversion expenditures for commercial office buildings, which have substantially converted to residential and mixed-use buildings. This bill also establishes a tax credit for 30% of qualified conversion expenditures for Missouri's main streets and small towns, where off-street and upper-floor storage and space often vacant despite the successful street-level businesses. By reducing the costs to Missouri's big developers in urban areas and its small local developers in small towns, well, we've got some experts here also, but I'd be glad to take any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions for the senator? Senator Beck?
Yes. Thank you. Hey, Senator, I'm just a couple of places. So what areas would this cover? I mean, what areas of the state would it cover? If you can give us examples, like if, Sedalia, downtown Sedalia probably, or maybe like the Lake of the Ozark area that really technically doesn't have downtown areas, I don't think. But
yeah, basically how you define, and I don't have it in front of me, the main streets areas, but the focus is, and there are certain prerequisites that have to be met. For example, like the building has to be over, I think, 20 years old. It has to have been commercial space. So these are properties that have really been sitting there for a while. I mean, for my district, what comes to mind is the AT&T building downtown, like the Railway Exchange. I mean, I think the AT&T building is the largest vacant building in the state. It's about 1.4 million square feet. So things like that, but also, like you were saying, small towns as well.
okay, and then like buildings, like, well, we just recently had this the fire that just happened. This warehouse that's been vacant forever, and they've tried to contact the owner for a long time. It just happened in St. Louis over the weekend, and took all the resources of the fire departments to. Would that qualify to buildings like that, or just specifically office?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I'm not as familiar with that warehouse.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you for
Senator.
the question.
Any other questions for the senator? Witnesses for the bill, please come forward. Be sure to leave a witness form.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to the committee. My name is Adam Kazda, Vice President, Government Relations for Greater St. Louis, Inc. I want to thank the Senator for bringing this bill forward. Pandemic changed a lot of habits of Missouri's workforce, shifting businesses and workers to hybrid and remote work environments, leaving many vacant buildings and downtowns and main streets across Missouri. Fewer employees populating Missouri downtowns and main streets has led to an increase in vacancy and a decrease in foot traffic in these areas, as the Senator mentioned, contributing to public safety challenges and the shuttering of some small businesses. Each of Missouri's 3 largest metro areas have experienced office vacancy rates rise since the pandemic. With this legislation, Missouri has a tremendous opportunity to become a national leader in the conversion of unproductive vacant office space into vibrant residential space in its downtowns and main streets. This bill will help ignite a resurgence to these areas across the state, including decreasing vacancy, increasing housing stock, and helping small businesses located in downtowns and main streets. This is a top priority for the St. Louis business community due to this STL 2030 jobs plan, specifically calling out the development of the urban core and commercial corridors throughout the metro region. I want to go on record in support of the bill. Happy to take any questions.
Questions for the witness? Mr. Esslinger?
Just curious, you talked about revamping or remodeling these vacant buildings into residential pieces. So have you seen this done in other parts of our nation? Is this something that is common? Because, of course, everybody's dealing with this, not just Missouri.
Sure. This is a somewhat relatively new, and I'm sure some of the developers can speak to this. I won't say the conversion of office is new, but the level to which this is going to be required in some metros is definitely on the rise. So if you think of like San Francisco, I think the latest number was they have 62 office buildings that are vacant or underutilized. Fortunately, in Missouri, we don't have that many, but certainly this is going to be an issue in metros, not only in St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield, Columbia, but it's an issue in small communities like Washington, Missouri, who I know that are very supportive of this, and not just their ground floor, as the senator mentioned, but upper floor housing that you've seen probably in main streets located in your district that are the second floors are often vacant for decades, if not longer. So this is helping move that along and to help convert some of these.
Any other questions for the witness? Seeing as there are none, thank you very much. Next up in favor of the bill.
792.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Jim Erickson, again from the representing the Economic Development Corporation of Kansas City, Missouri, and we want to go on record in support of this bill for all the reasons that Mr. Cosda had just mentioned. Senator, you'd asked about if we're seeing this in other parts of the nation. Well, in Kansas City, we've kind of seen a little bit of the impact that this bill could have, even though this wasn't a tool available to us about 15, 20 years ago. Downtown Kansas City has seen a pretty nice revitalization, and part of that has been our ability to successfully convert some of our old office product that was vacant in the early 2000s into viable residential projects. That kind of activation allows us to be a 24/7 downtown, and that has really just seen not only vibrancy increase, but also crime and blight decrease. And so we think this will be a very helpful tool in the state toolbox for downtowns and main streets. And just looking back in our rearview mirror to see the success that tools like this can have on downtowns, very supportive, and we think there's a lot of wisdom in passing this.
Any questions for the witness? Thank you very much. Next up, in favor of the bill, come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Lynn Schlosser here today on behalf of the Builders Agency of Kansas City. I'd like to go on the record in support of the bill and thank the sponsor for bringing it forward. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Thank you very much. Next up in favor of the bill.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Sam Luetkemeyer from Missouri Realtors in support of the bill. He said the magic word, housing stock.
All right. Senator Hesslinger?
That's actually 2 words.
Pardon?
That's actually 2 words.
Come
Actually,
on the old folks,
no.
Mark.
No, actually, I heard that word as well, and that is the component here that I see. I did see the revitalization happening in Kansas City. I've seen this in other parts of our nation, and I do know that there is an opportunity to create various levels of not only residential, but also the services around folks who live there, medical or any kind of, there's all kinds of opportunity there, so I'm really proud of the senator's bill, but I just had to give you a hard time. Because you're saying.
Heck of a job.
Pardon me?
Kansas City has
Yes.
done a heck of a job.
Yes.
Put some things together I didn't think were possible.
Any other questions for the witness? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to testify in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Heidi Geisbuehler Sutherland here on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. As previous witnesses have mentioned, people want to live and they want to spend their money in vibrant business districts. And if you're a business who is surrounded by vacant buildings, you're essentially on an island, and that makes it really tough. So this bill, I think, would help solve a lot of the issues that come with that.
Do we have any questions to the witness? Thank you very much. Next up in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian Grace here on behalf of the Missouri Growth Association in support of this bill.
Any questions to the witness? Thank you very much. Next up in favor.
Mr. Chairman, Shannon Cooper once again, and representing the Kansas City Chamber of Commerce as well as the Civic Council of Greater Kansas City, want to go on record in support of this legislation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions to the witness? Thank you very much. Next up in favor of the bill.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Chris Fields. I work for Foss & Company. We're a private equity fund dealing specifically in tax credits and energy historic. We're a nationwide business, and I'm active in the role of raising capital for projects that are affected both in the main streets of America as well as for these large vacant properties in downtown. And I am in support of this bill. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Oh, you stole my line. Senators, do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up in favor of the bill. Seeing as there are none, would anyone like to testify in opposition? Anyone for informational purposes? All right, well, that concludes the hearing for Senate Bill 792. Next up, we'll be hearing Senate Bill 884, also Senator Roberts. Begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee for affording me the opportunity to present Senate Bill 884. Senators, for years, Missouri's state historic tax credit program was considered to be a model for the rest of the country, but that's no longer the case. At the heart of what Senate Bill 884 does is address unnecessary and intentionally overly burdensome regulatory attempts to suffocate the program. Presently, reviews of applications for HTCs are delayed as long as a year, and developers have to navigate the standards which do not match national standards. Senate Bill 884 works to improve the system for all Missourians and increase transparency and reliability by implementing deadlines for responses from SHPO and requiring standards to match federal standards. Senate Bill 884 also works to make the historic tax credit more accessible for small developers and rural developers by increasing HTCs in counties outside St. Louis and Kansas City from 25 to 35% of total costs for the rehabilitation. I understand their support here today, and they may speak to some of the issues that they've experienced, but I would gladly answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the Senator? Seeing as there are none, would anyone here like to testify in favor of the bill?
Thank you, Senator, and Chairman and the members of the committee. My name is Jim Farrell with Historic Revitalization for Missouri. We are a statewide organization that works to protect and enhance the priority incentives that drive economic development and historic restoration of projects across the state. And we have members from every section of the state, from St. Joe to Hannibal and Louisiana to Cape Girardeau to Springfield, obviously in Kansas City and St. Louis as well. And so Our program has been one of the most successful in the country, and it has reached out to probably 100 different communities across the state. It has generated, and the important part is private investment. It's generated over $500 million in projects a year since it started in 1998, and over that time, it's been $12 billion of private investment throughout the state of Missouri. And we've also generated thousands of jobs, and each and every year as these projects are approved, it generates the several thousand jobs in terms of construction, as well as attorneys, architects, developers, consultants. So it covers a broad gamut. And we believe that this has been one of the most effective economic development tools that Missouri has had, and has been a model around the country. And so, as the senator mentioned, we got two prime areas, and one is improving the tax credit from 25% to 35% in areas, in the rural areas and areas outside of downtown city of St. Louis and Kansas City. And then also streamlining the process. And this is something that we've been working on for the last 3 or 4 years. It was a major problem for a number of years. We've gotten great participation in working with us and changing the culture with the Department of Economic Development, and we're now working on that same kind of partnering with the State Historic Preservation Office. So we appreciate the opportunity to get this bill moving. It was very close last year, passed the House 117-5, and was in each of the committees unanimous in the Senate. So we think that it will have a positive response statewide as well. So I've also brought in testimony from St. Charles County witness forum, as well as the Downtown Washington Executive Director of Downtown Washington, Inc. as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions to the witness? Thank you very much. Please be sure to leave a witness form. Next up in favor of the bill.
Good afternoon, Senator, members of the committee. I am Elizabeth Rosen. I am CEO of Rosen Preservation, a historic tax credit, historic preservation consulting firm based in Kansas City. I've been working with the Missouri Historic Tax Credit since it was first passed in 1998. And my firm now works nationwide, and I've had the opportunity to see areas where the Missouri credit really excels compared to those in other states, and where it is lacking. And I want to talk with you about two provisions in particular today.
Could you speak a little close to the microphone? I'm sorry.
So I want to talk about two specific provisions of the bill today. One would allow for the Department of Economic Development to allocate credits when a building secures its Part 1 approval. So when both the State Preservation Office and the National Park Service have formally certified that the building is eligible for listing in the National Register, instead of after that listing is complete. And the issue here is that it saves 9 to 12 months for the developer in their timeline. They would not receive their credits until the building is formally listed on the register, but it lets them proceed at risk while that National Register listing process is moving forward. The National Register predates the historic tax credits, both at the state level and the federal level, and they have different processes for application and approval. And this will just allow them to sync up a little better. This is an issue for both developers in large cities with big projects as well as for developers in small cities and rural areas with much smaller projects. It's about holding costs and timeline and allowing the developer to start moving forward with their rehabilitation project in a timely manner and not be carrying the costs involved in holding that building while they wait on the bureaucratic process. The second provision would give the Missouri SHPO, the State Preservation Office, a maximum of 60 days to review the different applications that are submitted. There are 3 parts to the application: very early in the process, in the middle with their scope of work, and then once construction is complete. As you've heard, sometimes that in the very recent past, that process has taken up to 12 months, which is untenable, again, for both developers large and small. If they're waiting to secure their financing, their construction loans are often dependent on these approvals. The regulations, the federal regulations say they should have 30 days. We're typically seeing about 60 days right now, but that does extend to 90, 120, and even more. So those 2 provisions will just make it more feasible for property owners to invest in the rehabilitation of their properties and support the revitalization of their communities. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for the witness? Thank you very much. Please be sure to leave a witness form. Next up, in favor of the bill.
Hello, I'm Debbie Shields. Can you hear me? Am I close enough? I'm a historic preservation consultant from Columbia, Missouri. I've been doing this for 30 years, so I actually did a couple of projects in Missouri before we had a state program. And I've also worked in several other states, and like Elizabeth, have seen what programs work and what don't. I strongly support this bill, and I want to thank the senator for bringing it to you. It is something we've talked about in the community for a long time. This is a good program, but this bill will make it a lot stronger and more efficient. It's completely appropriate. It's in the Economic Development Committee because historic preservation is economic development. It saves priceless historic resources, but it also puts them to work, and it puts our downtowns to work. I'm particularly fond of many of the provisions in this bill that will help rural communities. Many of my clients are in rural communities, sometimes tiny. I've worked on projects, I think my smallest project was maybe $65,000. That's rare because it's hard to do a project for that little amount. But by increasing the percentage for outstate areas, it really levels the playing field. I have a client doing a small project in Webb City, not a big building, but it came in at $1.5 million, and it's not a Cadillac level project. And as he said, I don't get rents in Webb City that are equal to what you'll get in Clayton. So this will help make it a little more viable to put that money back into smaller downtowns. I've had projects in Moberly, Herman, Blackwater, Cape Girardeau. Several of the clients that I see working are people who live in that town. I've had several clients who have sold their businesses, and rather than retire or travel or run around, they've turned around and started doing historic rehabs on the main streets of their hometowns. And it's often a transformative process. I told one client, you've made your own critical mass here. He did 4 buildings in 1 block. Changed how people thought about historic resources and downtown Moberly. So, again, I'm a big fan, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the witness? Thank you very much. Be sure to leave a witness form. Next up to testify in favor of the bill.
Again, Chris Fields, Foss & Company, resident in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm here to test the affirmative need for this. I represent, again, tax credit equity and funds. Just to give you a scope of it, I work for Foss & Company. We're a nationwide tax credit brokerage. We have active funds in 38 states, and I'm specifically in St. Louis because of the historic work that was done here, passing the original bill. Some 25, almost 30 years ago, I guess now. Missouri was the model, and is still looked to as a pioneer. But to be frank with you, your developers are looking at other states. All of the intellectual capital that was created here in finance and banking and developer capacity, specifically working within the tax credits, is starting to leak, and it's starting to look elsewhere. I represent 7 states, so I have boots on the ground experience in Kansas, Indiana, Texas, obviously Missouri, and Oklahoma and several under. And I can see where they've taken the model that Missouri pioneered and have tweaked it and made it better. Alignment between the agencies in terms of speed is critical, and how that relates to the development community on some of the projects that I've worked on, such as the St. Louis Foundry in St. Louis, which is fairly recognizable. Kansas City Star, which we're working now in Kansas City, can be a lot of dollars left on the table and discouragement of growth and development in downtown core areas. To give you an example, one of the developers that I just spoke of carried almost $1 million in interest on a loan on a development over about an 11-month period. That is a lot to carry, obviously, in a project, depending on the size, but also you have to re-pencil these projects constantly. Go back through developer approvals, banking approvals, tax credit equity agreements, and whatnot, accounting, legal. It becomes quite significant at the end of the day. This particular bill would streamline that process, align the interests of your agencies back to the development community with the purpose of the original pioneering spirit of the tax credit bill, and increase, I believe, development dollars into your downtown core areas. I do come out of Main Street. I've worked that segment. I haven't done it in a long time, but it is definitely being beneficial to the more rural areas as well. But on projects of scale in your urban core, this is going to be meaningful. And I very much hope that you will take consideration of this bill and approve it.
Thank you very much for that testimony. Would anyone like to ask any questions? Senator Begg?
Just one clarification, and you may know I probably should ask somebody else this question, but I remember going through this a few years back, and if I recall, like as far as tax credits go, historic tax credit was like one of the biggest payoffs. It was like roughly almost 8 to 1, I want to say.
I mean, in terms of a multiplier, I'm not an economist, but I would say, coming out of community and economic development, I've spent basically my career in this, it's got to be a 5 to 1 turnover. I mean, it really does trickle down. And also, there has been some argument about broken windows principles and whatnot, but a rehabbed building spurs other development. That is true. You can see that it'll raise property values and create opportunities. It's one reason why the other, kind of aligned bills with this, and the large office spaces need to be very, strongly considered. But I'd say a minimum of a 5 to 1, but I'm not an economist.
And that's the number I remember too, is 5 to 1. But I think it was like actually in Missouri a few years back. It was
I'm happy to say 8 to 1, but
well,
I can't.
and I may talk to some other experts around here, but it was
5 to 1 is the typical number that I think that the economists have zeroed in on in terms of the economic impact.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any further questions to the witness? Thank you very much. Be sure to leave a witness form. Next up to testify in favor of the bill.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Jim Erickson, representing the Economic Development Corporation of Kansas City, Missouri, and we want to go on record in support of this bill. We, on the Kansas City side, have had a lot of issues with the historic tax credit program over the last several years, and I'm going to mention an issue that has since been resolved, but this just kind of gives you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of the regulatory process as it is right now. A few years back when this program moved from an entitlement to a competitive process, a scoring system was set up, as you would expect, and a couple iterations of that scorecard had been issued, and then we were pretty surprised when the one a couple years ago had inadvertently eliminated Kansas City or downtown Kansas City from 22 of the 100 points. Basically, when we looked at about 120 projects that had gone through in the 5 to 10 years before, only a handful of those would have requalified under the new scorecard, and it was something that was not intentionally done, but yet it took all of about 2.5, 3 years to fix that issue. And so again, it's since been resolved, but bills like this really do help streamline the process, and in the Kansas City context, we really support it, even if it gives additional consideration to projects in rural areas. We think this will help make the process better and help facilitate more historic development. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions to the witness? Thank you very much. Next up to testify in favor.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Heidi Geisbuehler Sutherland here on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Also in favor of the bill. Rehabilitating historic buildings is a great economic driver for our community, and we especially appreciate the time frame that's provided in the bill so that someone who does want to rehabilitate one of those buildings knows whenever their application is going to be processed.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness? Thank you very much. Next up in favor.
Adam Kazda with Greater St. Louis Inc. want to go on record in support of the bill. This is critically important to development in St. Louis, and streamlining the process will only multiply that. Thank you.
Any questions to the witness? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, Shannon Cooper with the Kansas City Chamber, as well as the Civic Council, go on record in support of the bill. I don't believe I could add anything that has not already been said. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions to the witness?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Kathy Harness, and I am here today on behalf of the American Institute of Architects of Missouri, and we are very much in favor of Senate Bill 884 and thank the sponsor for bringing it to you.
Any questions to the witness?
I wanted to ask that.
Thank you very much. Next up in favor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, again, Lynn Schlosser with the Builders AGC of Kansas City would like to go on record in support of the bill for all the previously made comments. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions to the witness?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up in favor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Sam Licklider, Missouri Realtors, in support of the bill.
Any questions to the witness? Thank you very much. Anyone else like to testify in favor of the bill?
My name is Tim Green. I'm a registered lobbyist with the St. Louis Electrical Connection, which is an association of about 125 electrical and communication contractors and employs about 3,500 electricians and communication workers, and we are in support of Senate Bill 884.
Any questions to the witness? Thank you very much. Be sure to leave a witness form. Next up in favor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Randy Scher, representing the Missouri Economic Development Financing Association. We're a statewide group of economic development councils of counties and cities and developers, and very interested in all the economic development tools that we have available and anything that would make them more efficient, like the senator's bill. So,
Any questions to the witness? Thank you very much. Anyone else in favor of the bill? Would anyone like to testify in opposition to the bill?
Lisa Panette here with Armorvine. I just want to point out a couple of things that we just have concerns about. The eligible recipient here includes non-for-profit entities, and it references that the vacant schools can be some of these properties. And there was an O'Keefe expose that showed how they were using vacant schools, and it was Red Cross that was using those buildings to house illegals. So when we're repurposing this, we just want to make sure that it would be legal citizens that would be able to be housed in these units, and that there would be no way that we would be having an influx of illegals on the Missouri taxpayer dime.
Any questions to the witness? I have one. So you said that this was some kind of documentary or something?
Uh-huh.
And so what did they find in this?
So basically what he found was a bunch of illegals were being housed in an old school building. And so they had repurposed it for housing for illegals within that school.
Okay. Gotcha. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anyone else like to testify in opposition to the bill? Anyone like to testify for informational purposes? Senator, any closing remarks?
No, thank you for your flexibility as I run back and forth between these committees. Appreciate it.
Next, we'll be moving into executive session.
I did text Pat and let her know.
All right. Since we do have a quorum, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session. Thank you. We are in executive session. I move that Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 756 be brought before the committee. Do I have a second? This is Senator Luetkemeyer's Senior Property Tax Credit Bill. This was heard in the last meeting of this committee. It was some cleanup language. The underlying bill was cleanup language to the Senator's legislation from last year, Senate Bill 190. The Senate Committee Substitute that was distributed last week and again this morning addresses some additional concerns that were raised at the hearing. Is there any discussion on the Senate Committee Substitute?
Yes. Thank you.
Senator Beck?
So on the substitute, I'm assuming he talked to, I raised concerns about the bill also, and none of those concerns were addressed in the substitute. So I guess we have to accept the substitute first before we go to a vote. As a thing. Okay, so the one part in here, it allows the voters to override what the county councils do. Is that the one section that's been added to this? I guess, did the senator give us this? I think, is this the one? Do I get the right one? Yeah, so, the fourth one down, a provision is added providing that the ordinance adopted by a county may be amended or superseded by a petition adopted by the voters. So after the county would, say, give a tax credit, this is saying that the voters still can come back behind them and change that. Is that how you're reading that?
That would, my understanding would be that yes, through the petition process, that citizens would have a way to amend what the county had adopted.
Okay, well, so when I had the conversation with the senator, he was pretty clear with me that the only thing he needed to fix was that 62-year age and exactly who gets that and who doesn't. A lot of teachers were left out of the program, and when I discussed other issues, that was not, this is not one of those, I guess. So now this would be adding another layer of government past what we currently had in the bill at SB190 that we passed last year. Is that how you're reading it?
Well, I just got notice that Senator Luetkemeyer is on his way here right now to address any questions personally. So
No, I can address him on the floor. I'm just asking you, because he wasn't here earlier, but he already made it clear that he didn't want me to do any changes in the committee. So that's no problem. We'll do them on the floor, and we can have those conversations. But I was just curious about that language, and you can go forward with what you want to. Go ahead, go forward with accepting the.
okay. Any further discussion on the Senate Committee substitute? Hearing none, I move that Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 756 be adopted. Do I hear a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. I now move that Senate Committee substitute for 756 be due pass. Do I have a second? Frank, please call the roll.
Senator Brown,
Aye.
Senator Esslinger, Senator Beck.
So, like I stated, I want to qualify this answer that I'm going to give you. I want to be able to do this and give our seniors some tax breaks and some other things, but I don't think this bill here is currently the proper way to go about it. It does not give our counties flexibility. It also doesn't state that we can give billionaires tax credits for the same stuff for local services of schools and fire. So at this point, I want to know that I'm going to vote present on this bill, and that I want to be able to have those conversations on the floor.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Eigel left his vote with the chair. He'll be voting with the chair. He'll be voting yes. Senator Fitzwater, Senator Huff, Senator Roberts.
By a vote of 4 ayes and 2 presents, the motion carries. I now make a motion to move out of executive session. Do I have a second? We are out of executive session. With no further business coming before the committee, now make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? We are adjourned. Can't forget that.